Hello everyone, and welcome back to Sully's Open Conversation, the show that aims to have an unfamiliar conversation in a familiar environment. Today I've taken the trip to Bath to come and meet with James. Welcome, James.
Hello there, George. Good to speak with you.
Good to see you. Good to see you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure.
I'll let James introduce himself if you'd like to go ahead.
So you sent the questions beforehand, and I thought it was very interesting the who are you, the question, because I suppose love and hate that question at the same time, because it just opens up so many avenues. My name is James Gwinnett. Who I am is far more complicated, and I think it's a slightly flawed question. Actually, that sounds like a criticism. It's absolutely not a criticism of you. It's a criticism of society because we are so intent on defining who we are and achieving success and finding our purpose in life. You've got the advent of social media and also the fake elements of what is derived as success, the good job, the fast car, the big house, all of these things that we are, as a result of that, we are constantly projecting ourselves forward. And we are, as a society, I believe, becoming increasingly separated from our present, from our current state. We're looking forward. We're thinking, what can I achieve in the future? Can I be successful? Can I find where I fit on this planet? That we are constantly just intent on being human doings rather than human beings. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I do love that phrase. Yeah.
It's quite a common one. But the result is that we are constantly trying to achieve happiness in the future, but we're not content with ourselves in the present. And I studied classics at uni, so I can throw sort of Aristotle out.
Aristotle, get philosophical on that.
We're going
Please do.
Happiness is an activity of soul in accordance with perfect virtue. And what he, loosely speaking, meant by that is the ancient Stoic philosophy was based around living your life according to certain values in the present. It wasn't about achieving success. It wasn't about achieving riches. It was about being a good person, being kind to other people, and understanding the emotions that you experience. The Stoics believed in what they called eudaimonia, which was the achievement of happiness. And part of that was understanding that you can't always control everything. Certain things will happen to you, and it's how you react to them that matters. Epictetus was another famous Stoic who said something along those lines. And I think we are, as a society, just losing our ability to do that. And it's a bold statement, but I think it's the crux of the mental health crisis that we're facing at the moment. I say we've gone deep straight away. Bold statement, but we're so intent on this. Right? What does success look like? Where do I need to be in tomorrow, the next day, 5 years' time? That we're not looking at ourselves as who we are in the present moment. Now, I'm a husband. I'm a dog owner. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm a PR director at a company called Clearly. My boss told me to name check.
That's number one.
That's the first one. Paul, you're not anymore. But I also like baking. I can solve a Rubik's Cube. I used to play rugby, but I no longer do because I had to give it up because of a neck injury. I used to do long distance ultra marathons, but I've given up that as well. I've taken up jiu-jitsu instead recently. So the point of that is that everything is, all of our circumstances, everything in our lives is always fluid and changing. I don't want to get into sort of gender ideology or anything like that, but the point is that who we are isn't defined in the current moment. So the perfect example is that my wife is expecting in a month's time. Thank you very much. We've got a little son, all being well, arriving. So I'm not currently a father, but in a month's time I will be.
You will be, yeah.
So this need to define ourselves in the current moment, in the present, I think the whole concept of that is flawed. We don't need to be X, Y, or Z. We just need to focus on being rather than being X, Y, Z. We just need to focus on who we are and being present in the moment and enjoying the world and everything that comes with that. So, we've gone deep. My name's James Gwinnett, but who I am, I can't answer, I'm afraid.
I love it. No, I love it.
Still haven't decided.
I love it. And as you say, kind of, there's that beautiful saying as well, kind of, you shouldn't care about the past because that's been and gone and you can't change it. The future is, you can shape what you do today to potentially influence the future. However, today and now is called the present because every day is a gift.
I love that. Yeah. And I am a firm advocate of I do not believe in regret. I believe in that I have made mistakes and many, many, many of them. And we can go into the story of all the times I've gone wrong. I'm happy to, but that feeling of regret, I think, is a waste of an emotion. Because if you feel regret, you're not learning something, you're not moving forward, and dwelling on things isn't. It doesn't
conducive, is it? Yeah. It's not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and your mental health as well. Completely. If you spend your life regretting things, you certainly won't be focusing on what you can then be doing either today or working towards for wherever you see yourself in the future or what you aim to achieve.
There's that awesome scene in The Lion King where Rafiki smacks Simba over the head, and he's like, "Why did you do that? It doesn't matter. It's in the past." It's just, I've got a kid on the way, so I've got to reel off the Disney quote. But,
you've been doing your research.
Exactly. I've got full embarrassing dad mode, being engaged, dad jokes, and the rest of it. Disney quotes coming in. But yeah, looking back, dwelling on things, I think is again, it might sound blunt, but I think it's a waste of time.
Very interesting, and I like it. Yeah, I think that's kind of what this show is all about, is exploring and understanding everyone's perspective and how they see not just themselves, but life in general and where they want to be and where they want to go.
And it's our interaction with life. Mm-hmm. You might be religious, you might not, you might be spiritual, you might think that believe in the afterlife or not. I personally don't. I believe in the position that I am in my, again, present moment in life and my connection with the world around me and nature and the importance of that, rather than thinking 5, 10, 15, whatever years might be in the future.
Fantastic. An incredible start to the show. So if there is one particular thing that you've heard, seen or done recently that's positive, what would that be?
Yeah, we went slightly off on a tangent with our first question, didn't we? The second answer I can give you is a lot simpler. A lot simpler. I went for a run.
Lovely.
And I run for my mental health, not for my physical health. I exercise rigorously. I've done a load of mad, wacky endurance challenges and ultra marathons, and as I say, recently taken up jiu-jitsu. All of that is for my mental health. My running, my exercise, I can't run on a treadmill, just hate it, do not see the point of it.
It's like a hamster in a wheel almost, isn't it?
My running is outside, connecting with the world, it's my mindfulness. A lot of people, when you say the word mindfulness or meditation, they think lit candles and humming and cross legs and all the rest of it. It doesn't have to be that. It's just half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it might be, just switching off. Resetting the brain, solving problems. I have a mantra that if I have a problem that can't be solved on a half-hour run, I forget about it. I put it aside and I never go back to it. It's my time. In fact, my
me time.
Makes sense. It's my chance to, again, so solve problems, reset, switch off the brain from the stresses and strains of life, but also connect with the world and nature, but connect with myself as well, and explore difficult situations. I might have had an argument with someone. Well, okay, I can maybe digest that a little bit and work out what my responses are to that, or a difficult scenario at work that I haven't quite got my head around, or a deadline or whatever. It's problem solving time, and that's the mindfulness for me. It doesn't have to be that meditation in inverted commas, that sort of candle lit thing and a four-legged elephant in the background, but it's just that me time. I think that's very important, and we comes back to my first point about our lack of connection with ourselves as a result of this constant drive for success and purpose and the rest of it that we covered earlier.
I think in that sense as well, I think there's a lot of competition has been that is what society is kind of how it's been structured now, isn't it? There's a lot of social media, and we can go into the deep depths of that really, but and it can be another conversation. But being in the present, being in the here and now, and as you say, having the me time to, you may want to try and problem solve. And actually, really interestingly, and I think certainly in mental health in society at the moment, we're very much focusing on the kind of negatives, or when your mental health may not be as healthy as it should be. But actually, when you're focusing on the positive sides of mental health, excuse me, when your mental health is improving and you're actually mentally healthy, you can solve problems better. Which is and problem solving is a huge part of mental well-being.
Spiral process. The more you invest in it, the more you get out in it. And actually, this is another deep tangent that we can go into. We are inherently negative as a species.
Interesting.
And this goes back millions of years to our basic instinct of the human species is to survive, and it has been for 2.5 million years since humans in some shape or form first evolved from monkeys and all the evolutionary story. But the instincts that we had back in the day, our ancient ancestors, was to survive, and the fight or flight response is useful in a way, but because back in the day, if the fight or flight response was called
suppressed,
it was because we were about to get mauled by a saber.
Exactly.
So it was basic, genuine survival instinct. That is obviously less of a being mauled by a saber-toothed tiger. It's less of an occurrence now.
Yeah,
but we still have that
innate. It's almost innate, isn't it?
It's an innate negativity, and it manifests in the example. For example, if you've signed up to run a 5K, for example, you've never done anything of that kind before. The first day you'll be sat on your sofa, dunking your custard cream in your cup of tea, and your mind will tell you, don't go for a training run. That will cause you stress. And the body likes to operate in this state of what's called, we're going biology now. We've gone stoicism, anthropology, we're going biology. The body likes to operate in this state of what's called homeostasis, which is where the heart is going at a nice steady rate, the breathing is regulated, your digestive system is working efficiently. And once it leaves that state, the mind goes, stop, because you can't survive for a sustained period of time in that state. You can't eat the right things, your heart will eventually give out, you can't breathe fast enough, etc., etc. So even the thought of going for a run, your mind will go, no, don't do that. Chill out. Keep dunking your custard cream. Go for a run tomorrow. But guess what your mind will tell you the next day?
Yeah, that's all the same.
Exactly the same thing. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So we have a responsibility, a duty, I suppose, to recognise these thoughts and where they come from in order to override them and just be more positive and put more into our mental fitness so that we can get more out of it. Because it's only by recognising those negative thoughts that we can then counteract them, and we can start becoming aware of how they are holding us back. And in doing so, in their holding us back, they are having a debilitating effect on our mental health.
Yeah.
But the counter of that is that if we can flip that and be more positive and achieve more not achieve more tomorrow or the next day, achieve more by feeling great and going for a 5K run in the present moment. It's a spiral process, and it all improves our I call it mental fitness. Because it's something that we can work on.
It's kind of like brain training, isn't it? Whereas when you go for when you go for a run and things like that, it's physical training, but as you say, it's also incredibly beneficial for our mental.
People say the phrase mental health. they automatically think mental ill.
They instantly go to the negative.
Whereas,
they instantly go to the illness and condition side rather than actually seeing it as a whole. As we said before as well, physical health, good and bad. You can be physically ill or you can be physically healthy.
Exactly.
Or you can just have kind of a niggle you don't have to be ill for you not to be in peak physical condition.
Quite right.
And it's interesting when you were kind of explaining about the homeostasis stuff. All I had in my mind ringing there was it's comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's complete comfort zone, because actually all that is keeping you, that is totally for you to not grow. And the only way that you are able to grow is when you get out of that comfort zone.
So again, as a species, if we could sit in the corner, eat and procreate, we would be happy.
That would be, yeah.
I mean, job done. Stick Netflix on. We would be happy, but that doesn't help us. It doesn't help us grow, achieve.
We wouldn't have developed as a species as we have
Quite
if everyone just stayed in that comfort zone. If everyone just stayed,
we'd still be monkeys or whatever. 2.5 million years ago. Quite a lot has changed in that time. But from a pure survival perspective, we wouldn't be getting anywhere. And there's another sort of interesting analogy. It was that our ancient ancestors, if they ate 10 berries, they wouldn't remember the 9 tasty, juicy, delicious ones. They'd remember the one that was bad, because if they ate it again, it would kill them. So there's actually no, and this again is a fairly blunt statement, but there's no benefit in terms of our survival to being positive.
Wow.
And that's what we need to override as a society, as a species, in order to feel better, get more from life.
And it being essentially innate.
Yeah.
You can't just flick a switch. This is going to be a process that will take a long time. As more people get on board, as more people become more educated and understanding of the topic as a whole, that's when we can really start to make real strides in. I think Tanya was kind of saying in our episode that unless you know the right terminology and language to use surrounding mental health to begin with, you can't expect people to be having effective conversations. And you can't expect people to be understanding the topic as a whole. And therefore, we know that education and understanding is wholly beneficial, because we know that for our physical health, 100%, you go to the gym, you go for a run, you eat healthy foods, you sleep well, that is all beneficial and facilitates a healthy physical lifestyle. But we're now only starting to appreciate and understand and gain awareness for the benefits it actually has mentally as well.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I call it mental fitness.
Yeah.
Because you go to the gym, you can lift a certain weight for 1 week and then you get stronger. And then the next week you lift a slightly heavier weight, and that's tangible. You can see the advancements and the improvements that you're making. Maybe it's you run a 5K in a slightly shorter time, or the bleep test was what we did at school, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you get to level.
Don't remind me of that.
I love the bleep. I'm slightly wired, slightly different. Okay, we come on to silly endurance challenges, but it's tangible. You get results. Yeah. You can't see that. You can't write down a score in terms of your brain
fitness. Yeah.
You can write, I feel 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 or 7 out of 10.
But it's nowhere near as tangible as, and I think that's a huge frustration in our society, in a society that relies so heavily, as you say, with success and things like that. You've got your cars, your houses, your job. They are tangible, you can see it and you can measure it. But how difficult is it to measure a feeling or an emotion, or whether you are just kind of down in the dumps one day or that is something that is occurring more long term? It's far more difficult to measure. And I think the lack of measurability at the moment is what isn't kind of conducive for people to be getting on board and really wanting to figure out and find out more about their mental well-being. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, there are apps out there. You can sort of grade your mental fitness and different areas of life and things like that. But it's still in its infancy, I'd say.
Because again, it's not IQ either, because IQ is intelligence. And actually, I think obviously you've also got EQ, which is emotional intelligence, and I think self-awareness and emotional intelligence is a very good indicator. I'm not saying it's measurable, but an indicator for someone who is benefiting from being mentally well, or certainly improving their mental well-being, because self-awareness is a huge thing. 100% self-awareness and understanding what is beneficial for you and what might be detrimenting you in terms of both your physical and mental well-being. But when you start to kind of look into it further and really start to then go into self-awareness for yourself, you then become aware of socially. So you'll then become more emotionally intelligent, and emotional intelligence it's a whole range of things, really, but you've got empathy involved in that. So when someone is maybe feeling down or jubilant or kind of any kind of emotion, you can almost tune in to what they're feeling and have some idea or some feeling in yourself that they are as well. And I think this is an incredible thing in terms of we are a collective consciousness as human beings. We are innately the same. There are obviously characteristics and our perspectives are different, and our own life experience is totally unique to us. However, we can tune into one another. We can start to understand what someone might be feeling, or I'm not saying telekinesis and thinking, but you can have an idea, especially in terms of body language, the tone of voice. There are things that you can start to fine-tune and tune into that are also beneficial when you're mentally well. Because when your mental health deteriorates, if it goes into illness or a condition, that can sometimes be blocked, or that can sometimes be not as in tune, as I say, as in the kind of collective consciousness kind of way. And I think, again, things like social media will go back to, it's like it is drawing you away from that connectivity and that fine tuning, and diving you into something that is wholly almost fake.
Yes, fake is the right word. And the self-awareness piece is, and this is something that I could spend the next 4 hours on. This is the whole premise of why the term I use, mental fitness, is just being aware of who we are in the moment, and the emotions that we're experiencing. And it's the reason that I got into the endurance challenges, ultra marathons that I've done. I, long story short, had a very bad rugby injury, broke my neck, had to give up the game, and that was the reason I talk about identity and who you are in such detail, is because that was my identity.
Yeah.
I was the alpha male, big, strong, fit rugby player, and that was stripped out from underneath me in an instant. And I didn't handle it very well. I'd handled it very badly, actually. I spent 3 years drinking myself silly, developed alcoholism, depression. I don't know which came first, but I'm not a psychologist. And it was the realization that something needed to change, that there was a light bulb moment where I, long story short, I put away a bottle of Jack Daniels and ended up in a grimy hotel room. The next morning, I just thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. And that was the start of the journey through self-awareness and the discovery of sciencey people who study sciencey things call it metacognition.
Yeah.
And I found running, as I talked about earlier, as my recovery. I was sat in an AA meeting. I did the AA for about 6 months, and during that time I signed up to run the London Marathon. Sat in an AA meeting, and I thought, this is great, but I could be spending this hour on a training run. And that started the journey into well, it was part of my journey of sobriety, but it started the journey into running. And the reason I use ultra marathons as a sort of metaphor for life is because I'm not suggesting everyone goes off and runs an ultra marathon. They're not for everyone. There's a lot of chafing. But the reason I use them as a metaphor for life is because you experience every single emotion over a 24-hour period.
Wow.
If you're running 100 miles, you have some pretty terrible low moments, cataclysmically awful low moments where your mind, as we said earlier, your mind will say, just stop.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? This is ridiculous. You're in pain. Sit down, have a cup of tea. Yeah,
Put your feet up.
Marshals will come and collect you. Go to the pub. But you will also experience these incredible highs. I can remember one instance. I was running through the night, and it had been a very hot day, and the weather was breaking overnight, and I could see flashes of lightning in the background. It was just the most beautiful, serene, but also this immense power of nature in the background, and the weather broke, and it started raining, and I got drenched, but it was a nice feeling because I'd spent all day baking hot. It's sort of quite refreshing running in the rain with this lightning going around it. Wow. So you have these amazing highs, and obviously the feeling of getting over a finish line. But it's the emotions and the experiences the feelings that you experience as you go through it that we need to be more aware of in our everyday lives. And it's how to deal with those emotions. So you have these very, very low points, and you have to think, right, what do I need to do in order to get through that? And life, let's face it, life can be shit, right? It can be tough. It can be tough. You've got deadlines, you've got exams, you've got to pass your driving test, and you've got to get a job, and then you maybe a family member gets ill, or you have a serious mental health issue. Life has its really shit moments, but generally speaking, if we can understand the emotions that we experience as a result of those shit situations and how to deal with them, we can improve our perspective on life. We can improve our recognition of the good moments so that we can more fully appreciate them.
Incredible.
That's my, again, the metaphor is the very physical task of running 100 miles or however long it might be. Even on a 5K run, you'll experience some good points and some bad.
Definitely.
It's that understanding that you life throws this sort of shit at you, but if you know how to deal with it, if you know that you're low on salt, or you haven't drunk enough, or you haven't eaten enough, or you've got a blister, or so, and you know how to deal with it in a physical level, that then translates into the mental, the feelings, the emotions, the experiences that come with that, and how that again, that helps us through life, the roller coaster of life.
I think that's, a couple of things I'd definitely like to pick up on there, especially in terms of, you say it's really important to feel those emotions. And I think, especially in men, because it hasn't always been promoted that men are the emotive characters and that they should really speak about and kind of say what they're feeling, that I certainly remember growing up, I tried to suppress those emotions. I tried to, because they're ultimately, I don't think feelings and emotions can be good or bad. Ultimately, it's how you perceive them and how you're registering them.
Yes.
Because ultimately, if you are feeling sad, if you're feeling deflated, but you can learn from that, you can turn it into a positive still. But I think there is a huge disparity kind of in terms of having those feelings, knowing that and understanding them and being able to process them, and then knowing what you can do about it.
So I very much agree that emotions shouldn't be labelled as good or bad.
Definitely.
And we have an inclination, I think, to judge ourselves negatively if we experience an emotion like anger or pain or grief, and think of that as a bad emotion. There's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion. There's just emotions. We all experience things differently, and we all go through all different types of emotions, and judging ourselves from that is I believe very detrimental. Like you say, it's about understanding what different situations cause us to have those emotions and how we respond to them. Epictetus, again, we go back to the Stoics. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it that matters. So it's that level of understanding, and some people would suggest having a diary an emotions diary of the experiences that you come across, the situations that you find yourselves in, and how your body and how your mind reacts to that.
Yeah, mind and body.
Mind and body. Yeah. So very much agree that emotions shouldn't be labelled.
And I think, picking up on the Stoicism as well, because I think that's there's certainly this, and this is traditional Stoic, silent type that we used to refer men as.
Yes.
And of course, as you're explaining it, there are positives and benefits to Stoicism, and as you say, seeing the positive and how you react to a situation. But there is also then that lack of kind of sharing, and
so I think there's a slight difference in terms of the ancient philosophy of Stoicism
and how it's now,
but that has been understood. The adjective Stoic, without a capital, with a small s, is the sort of British stiff upper lip. Don't talk. It's not to be talked about. We don't express our emotions when they're. There's a slight difference, but yes, you are absolutely right in that has now become understood that that's what Stoic refers to, which is it's not what Aristotle
was trying to get at,
was preaching, or was preaching many years ago. We have become. I think we're getting better, and conversations like this. Yeah, hopefully someone will think, I've taken something from this. If one person takes something from this,
he's done the job. He's done the job.
So we're getting better. That British stiff upper lip.
That's kind of
is being moved out,
being broken down.
We need to do more.
Yeah,
we need to do more.
And I think I just wanted to pick up on as well, because it's when you kind of explained your journey and kind of mentioned a little bit about it there. We share a similar thing in the terms of our self-awareness started to develop, and this happens to a lot of people as well when you're almost hitting rock bottom, when you're in a really difficult situation, when you are experiencing, as you say, the shit in life, and it can become so overwhelming. And I think that's where as well, especially, there is a sort of a fight or flight response, because I mean, personally, in my own experience, I think I flighted. I mean, what ended up happening, and luckily I survived, but that was then the indicator. A year later, it then took me to then being hospitalised to then realise, actually, no, the way that I'm living my life now, there are reasons why this is happening. These things are arising because I'm not addressing specific issues, or I'm not addressing the difficulties and challenges that are on me at the moment. And if I try to suppress, if I try to ignore, it's only going to make it worse. So it's incredible for you to have been in that position and thought, I can't go on like this.
Yeah, the fight or flight response in that situation is, the fight or flight response generally is obviously supposedly a good thing.
It's not, and it's not like a set. It's not this one defining moment. I suppose it is gradual, and it's a development.
And again, in the modern society where there aren't saber-toothed tigers wandering, it's of less use. But if a guy ran in the door with a gun now, you'd be thankful for your fight or flight response. But if it comes down to the situation whereby you don't think that you have a choice but to try and take your own life, and that's as a result of your fight or flight response. Obviously, very, very different, very negative situation. But again, it's understanding the emotions and why am I feeling this fear? Why am I feeling like I have to get out? Why am I feeling like it's
being trapped, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the trap. So yeah.
And what did that kind of recovery look like for you, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. So I'm now almost 8 years sober.
Congratulations.
And it's been a fascinating journey. As I say, I went from the initial feeling very awkward in my first AA meeting, sort of thinking, why the hell am I here? I don't resonate with it. I don't understand it. Because the typical alcoholic stereotype is the guy on the bench in the park with his brown paper bag. I wasn't one of those, but I was drinking every day, and I was putting away a bottle of whiskey quite happily, and getting up and going to work the next day. it just became too much for me, and I had this rock bottom light bulb moment where, as I say, it just had to stop. And I became addicted to being sober. It just somehow my mind just flipped in an instant. And I don't think if I hadn't have had that rock bottom moment, I don't think that would have happened. It's fascinating how my brain just went from being my fight or flight response. If I felt afraid or I would drink a bottle of whiskey. That was my response to difficult situations. But my response now is, I'm going to go clear my head. I'm going to go for a run, do some exercise, spend time with my wife, go for a walk the dog, jiu-jitsu, whatever it might be. All these healthy, eat the right things, nurture my brain, nurture my body.
Yeah.
I do ice baths. I do all the good shit, basically, because it's all part and parcel of the mind, body, nutrition, the sort of the health package. And I immersed myself in the early stages in AA, hypnotherapy, webinars, counselling, reading, books, internet research, just the works, just to try and understand and get to the real core of why did my brain want to go and drink. And when I knew it was damaging, detrimental to my health, I knew it was impacting my relationships with my I was engaged at the time, and she ended it. She called the whole thing off. My family suffered. My friends didn't really want a part of it, and they was like, well, we're there, but you're a
distance.
Yeah. So it was massively detrimental to all areas of my life, but somehow the brain just ignores that and goes off and does what it wants, and you end up in the pub halfway down a pint at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's crazy how the brain operates, and that ability to flick that switch was just enlightening, and it sent me off on this journey whereby I knew that, having from my rugby days, having been fit, being healthy, and had this goal, for want of a better word, to be the best rugby player and healthiest and fittest, strongest rugby player I can be, I knew I needed some kind of tangible goal to set myself towards. And call it fate. I know my mum says these things James, things happen for a reason. Shortly after I decided that I needed to quit drinking, it was about a week later, I found myself one Sunday morning watching the London Marathon on television, and it just smacked me in the face. This is it. You need this, James. And having never run more than 10k in my life before, I'd done a few training runs for rugby, but rugby was all power, endurance.
A lot of endurance, yeah.
I'd never run 10k. It was just a turning point in my life, and so I signed up the next day. Still a year ahead of the following year's marathon, with a rugby charity that I'd done some work with. I said, right, I want one of your places next year. And that, what I'd lost from rugby was the routine and the discipline and the structure in my life, because everything in rugby was geared towards kick off at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. So eating the right things, doing the weights training on a Monday, the team run on a Tuesday, the more weights on a Wednesday, final adjustments on. It was all geared towards that, being the best I could possibly be at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. The routine, the discipline, the structure just went out of the window when I broke my neck. I had absolutely none of that, and that's why I fritted off to the pub in the middle of the day, because I just didn't have anything to focus on. I didn't have any reason for being. Again, it was that identity. I didn't have that. I'm no longer a rugby player.
Loss of identity, isn't it?
Exactly. So that the marathon gave me the routine, the structure, and I built up a year-long training plan. And a year later, I said to myself, I'm gonna finish in under 4 hours. I'm gonna run every step of the way. And a year later, crossed the finish line in 3 hours and 55 minutes, having run every single step of the way.
Amazing.
And the feeling I got from that was better than anything I'd ever experienced on the rugby field. partly because of the abuse that I put my body through the previous 3 years, but mainly because of the being able to the fact that I'd stuck to this structure and this routine and overcome this seemingly impossible challenge of, if you'd have told me a year beforehand that
you'd be doing that,
17 stone, 6.5 foot out of shape rugby player, that he'd be running a marathon a year later, I'd have said that'd be ridiculous. But then it got me thinking, and I spent a few days like aching and thinking, oh God, why the hell did I do this? But then it's called type 2 fun. Have you come across this phrase?
No.
So type 2 fun is
Type 2.
Type 2 fun is where it's horrible at the time,
But
then afterwards you're like, oh my God, that was the most amazing thing in the world. I need to do it again. Again, the way my mind works, it was right. Okay, well, I've done 26.2 miles. That was achievable.
I want to do more.
Go a little bit further. And so I just started this incredible journey. I did the Paris Marathon the year after that.
Amazing.
And then I did so I got a couple of marathons on my belt. I was like, right, there's more in this. And again, it was all for my mental health. It was just to keep my discipline, keep my structure, and mainly keep to my sobriety journey. I signed up for an event called The Wall, which was from a run from Carlisle to Newcastle, along Hadrian's Wall.
Oh, mate,
So that was 70 miles.
Jesus.
Between 2018.
And what's that? That's pretty much 3.
So it's 2.5.
2.5
ish. And along the way, I had the incredible opportunity to go on SAS Who Dares Wins.
Yeah.
This show on Channel 4.
Please do tell more.
If you come on to that. And then I got to the 70-mile point, and I thought, well, maybe there's 100 miles in. And this then became this like sacred figure in the back of my head, and like, I mean, it was a forward. So it's countering everything I said earlier about projecting forward. It was an achievement I wanted to achieve in the future, and it didn't necessarily make me happy, but it was something to.
But again, it's a purpose. It's a meaning. It's structure. It's
routine. And then COVID happened and things were delayed, and so there was a bit of frustration there. But eventually, I think it was 6 months after COVID, the September of 2020, I ran from London to Oxford along the Thames, 100 miles. And again, across that finish line, I set myself the goal, I'm going to do it in under 24 hours. I did it in 20 and a bit, I think.
fantastic.
Again, the feeling of achievement of doing 100 miles in a day. If you'd have told me 5 years beforehand, I'd be like, that'd be ridiculous. It's not possible. But again, it comes back to the negativity of our innate negativity. If you tell yourself, I can't run 100 miles, you can't bloody run 100 miles, can you? Whereas if you say, this is going to be incredible, I'm going to love it, I'm going to learn something, I'm going to improve my health, it was the most amazing feeling. And the same can be said for SAS, is that people often ask me, is it as brutal as it looks on TV? And I always say, no, it's 10 times worse.
Really?
But that's not how I look at it. I look at it as the most incredible thing I've ever done. It was a life...
huge opportunity.
It's an amazing opportunity. There's only about 100 people on the planet that have done that. They've reeled it off into America and Australia now, so there's more. But at the time, I think it was the 4th season, there were only 100 people on the planet that had done this thing. And I got to fly around helicopters in the Andes and abseil off bridges and ridiculous, swim under glacial lakes. And like, it all sounds like horrible, but I only took positive things from it.
Wow.
And it taught me that the interesting thing that the directing staff, the DS, that I learned from them was that they weren't looking for the fittest, strongest, bravest, most handsome, most charismatic leader. They weren't looking for, they were just looking for the guy or girl that was going to keep going.
He's going to go for it.
Just not going to quit. Whatever they threw at us, if you put one foot in front of the other, you will get through to the final stages. And I was one of 8 that got through to the horrible interrogation stress position, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. That's another conversation entirely. just by keeping my head, getting my head down and putting one foot in front of the other. The physical stuff was brutal, but it was doable. If you just kept telling yourself, it will end. It will end. And it's the same, talks about the ultramarathons as a metaphor for life. It will end. Churchill, I think, said, if you're going through hell, keep going. You know, there's all these like amazing, I love a motivational quote, isn't it? Reeling off Aristotle. There's all these quotes. It's just like, basically, get your fucking head down and just keep going. And that realization from the show that you didn't have to be the fastest or the fittest, but if you could just keep going, that was then actually, so I did SAS before the 100-mile ultramarathon. So that was
and that must have put you in an incredible position. Just right, well, if I've done that, then
well, exactly.
what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had a very similar conversation with a friend of mine who I did. So I did a 100-mile run 2 summers ago. I did a 150-mile run from London to Bristol along the canals, and I met up with a mate, Matt, who I did it with, and he and I we were having this conversation that if you can get through something like that, basically, if you do stuff that's hard willingly, it makes doing stuff that's hard unwillingly a hell of a lot easier.
That's really interesting.
And that's why I do all this. I mean, he was the same. He's like, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I go for a run, and then I come back and have an ice bath, because then when I rock up at work at 8 o'clock, I can do anything.
Wow.
It's just like I can achieve anything I want to. And all my colleagues were like, God, how do you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go for? Like, well, I've had 6 hours sleep. I'm good to go. And now I'm here at work. Right. What do I need to get done?
And once it's actually getting into the routine is obviously the hardest part. Once that started to set, once that is now part and parcel of your lifestyle, you don't know anything else really.
No.
It just becomes part of who you are.
Exactly.
And that is
again who you are in the present. You know, it's I've got up at 4 o'clock today.
Yeah.
I've gone for a run. I've achieved something hard. I've sat in a nice bath. I've experienced discomfort, but I feel incredible as a result of it. I've got the runner's high. I've got the post ice bath, blood rush, the endocannabinoids, I think they're called, which are the pain and stress relievers, and you've experienced all of that. Everything else is
before you've even gone to work.
And you can sit there and you can have your coffee and you think, do you know what? I've nailed today. I'll bring it on. But we are again. It's pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone.
Definitely.
You know, people. I found it very interesting in COVID. The number of people that I spoke to who, when we weren't allowed to commute, who spent an extra hour in bed every morning. I didn't. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I love a pizza more than anyone else on this planet. Food is my vice. I eat so much cake, it's unreal. I'm not perfect, but I got up at the same time every morning and went for a run around Wimbledon Village, around Wimbledon Common. As did my girlfriend at the time, now wife. We were living in a small one-bedroom flat in Wimbledon, and we took the opportunity to use that extra hour, 2 hours, commuting in and commuting out a day, to achieve something, to better ourselves, to improve our health, to improve our mental fitness, which was important at the time, given the isolation and the lockdown. And
I mean, probably as important as any other time that you've kind of had in your life.
Actually, at the time, the day that Boris announced lockdown, March 2020, March.
It was 2020.
Something like that. Anyway, I was due to go and do one of these multi-day ultramarathons with some of my SAS friends in Sri Lanka. 250 kilometres in 5 days in the heat and the humidity and wild elephants wandering around. It was going to be amazing, but it was cancelled last minute. And the day that Boris announced lockdown, I had run 50 kilometres around London.
Jesus.
Because I'd done all the training for it, of course. I'm damn well going to run the distance. I'll do it around London instead. And I was raising money for the Mental Health Foundation as well. So it was an important initiative to keep going. And I wanted to fulfill an obligation to people who had donated. Boris, I'd run 50k around London. Boris that night said, right, you're not allowed to leave your house unless it's for exercise. He didn't stipulate how long.
Yeah, he did.
How
You've gone for 40 hours.
So the next day I went out and I did one piece of exercise, which just happens to be a 50k run around Wimbledon Common. And the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day. So anyway, that's a silly anecdote, but I can't remember what we were talking about before.
To have that initiative and to have that drive. Of course, with that, you've obviously had your donators, but if you're training for it, if you are physically ready and mentally ready, you've been mentally preparing yourself for it as well. Like, you can't forget that either. Is that, like, when you do have these things that you are about to kind of run on and kind of put into action, almost just dropping off and like not doing it, it would leave a sour taste almost.
I have dropped off and not done it, and my mental health has suffered as a result.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm now in a place where, as I say, I did the longest run I did was from London to Bristol, and that was 2 summers ago, and I haven't done a long run since then. I got my wife's a very accommodating lady. We got married, and I did that long run 6 days later. So we had like a tiny little mini moon in Cornwall, and then because it had been in the diary for months, but since then, and it might sound a little bit fluffy, but since then, sort of the feeling of happiness that I have derived from being married, and now got a son on the way, and I don't feel compelled to have these objectives.
Yes.
So far down the line, I'm now content with keeping my fitness ticking over, just for the sake of keeping it ticking over. And I do 5k runs, 10k runs, and as I say, I've taken up jiu-jitsu, which is a totally different ball game, but incredible. Gives me such a buzz. But it's still for my mental fitness. But I don't have these mad challenges planned out so much as a result of that.
The next mad challenge is looking after a newborn. then you might be compelled to run another 150k.
I'm going to leave you to it. I'm going for a run. I'll run through the night rather than change nappies at night. Yeah, we'll see where we get with that, but that'll be an adventure. An adventure,
let's say. Yeah.
The next adventure.
Absolutely fantastic, James. That's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the last thing before we go, is there one particular, you've obviously named a hell of a lot of kind of mindfulness through the conversation, but if there is one particular thing that you do to help keep mindful and others that you would recommend to try, then what would that be?
Absolutely. I'm going to tee this up actually with two responses that I get when I talk about this mad running, ultra running stuff, which are, firstly, and again, it's like an innate, people respond to an ultra marathon. People respond to that almost as if they haven't thought about the answer. It just comes out. And there's two very typical responses. One is, are you mental? And the second is, oh, I could never do that. And both of those fascinate me.
Both negative.
Both of those fascinate me. My response to the mental one is, well, yes, I am. And I'm proud to be mental. And obviously not in a straitjacket padded cell sense of the word.
Which is a kind of stereotype.
Which is it's almost
stigma. That is the stigma. That is the stigma.
Almost insulting.
It completely
You're mental. Well, you don't mean that in a good way.
It's another conversation, but I've noticed on social media a hell of a lot, and in people's conversation in their language, they're using the term insane a lot. At the moment.
Crazy, insane, mental. They're mad. Throw them all together.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's all adding to the stigma. But sorry, go on.
No. It's very interesting. Again, you sort of package all of that together. But my response is, well, yes, I am mental, and deliberately so, because we all need to be. We all need to be, again, not in the stigmatizing sense of the word, but we all need to be more aware.
Yeah.
And this comes back to metacognition, self-awareness. We need to understand the processes, the the emotions, the feelings that our brain is going through in order to help us cope with life. So when people say you're mental, I say, well, yeah, bloody hell, I am. And I'm proud of being mental. It's taken a lot of work to be mental, to get through almost 8 years of sobriety and the ultra marathons and the journey that I've been through as a result of that. But I feel better as a result of it. So everyone should be more mental, and that can be done. Again, it's like, my phone's over here. You're waiting for the kettle to boil. You're doing this, or you're on Instagram. Right, rather than doing that, put your phone away, wait for the kettle to boil, and just think. Right, how do I feel today? Just analyze. It takes 3 minutes.
The checking in.
Just the check-in. It's right. Okay, there's something not quite, something niggling me a little bit. What is that? Why is that? That self-awareness, that daily ritual exercise is incredibly important for building metacognition and the mental fitness that comes with that. And again, the ability to cope with life. It's an exercise. And we talked about how the brain is a muscle, and we can improve mental fitness. So that checking in, that self-awareness, be more mental. That's my first tip. And the second phrase again, I can never do that.
Yeah.
Again, people say it without even thinking.
It's a subconscious thought.
So it comes out so quickly. It's barely as if the brain has been able to process the information. It's just innate, instantaneous. I can never do that. Now, I fully appreciate that most people don't want to run an ultramarathon. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's great at the same time. But the instantaneous limitation that people
put on yourself,
post on themselves, is so debilitating because it's immediately in your subconscious. It's putting you down. It's putting yourself down. If you can't run an ultramarathon, what else can you do? Can you not achieve that promotion? Can you not buy the fast car that you want? Can you not be happy? Right. So we all need to do away with I can't. There is no such thing. My dad, I don't know, this was a phrase that our dads came out with. There's no such thing as can't. And it should be a mantra for us. Again, comes back to that negativity of the human species, and that sort of the concept of putting ourselves outside of homeostasis, of our comfort zone, and not liking the thought of that. Whereas it's fine to say, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. But not.
You should ever say we can't do that.
Yeah.
So those are my two: be more mental and don't limit yourself. My two go-to ways to improve your mental fitness.
Brilliant. Yeah, as I said, James, it's an absolute pleasure.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Right. It's been great fun.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And it's another important point is that speaking about mental health can be enjoyable.
Completely.
It doesn't have to be dismal and dreary and horrible. It can be.
It's invigorating.
Exactly.
It really is. And once we take on the conversation, and once hopefully more people will take on the conversation like this, it doesn't always have to be surrounding difficult or negative. It can be, how have you turned that into a positive experience? How are you using your mental well-being to benefit your aspects of your life?
Absolutely.
So it's, I think hopefully it will just become more and more normalized, and people are more aware, understanding and educated on it, so that they too can
be more mental.
What a better way to end.
Be mental.
So thank you all very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time on Sully's Open Conversation. Thank you and goodbye.